Sweet. Hi, Harmony. Hi. Can you hear me? So. Hey, Sawyer. Hey, can you hear me? Okay, good. Sorry.
Yeah.
And Harmony, you can hear
Yeah.
too? Okay, good. I'm assuming she can. So, how's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. It's good.
Good. Have you been turkey hunting at all?
No, we don't hunt.
Well, you probably can't, right? Because are you 17?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, youth day is 16 and under.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway.
Yep. No, we don't really hunt, so
Right. Yeah. Have you been launching your potato gun?
every day.
Are you kidding me?
Not every day, but a lot.
That sounds funny. You have two of
Yeah,
them,
it's
right?
fun.
Yeah.
Yep, we made 2.
Nice. Huh. So how's spring break? Did you hang out or did you work?
Just kind of hung out. We didn't really do anything.
Yeah. So yeah, I've seen well, I don't know, Kristen I think is going to be here, and Ella too. She accepted the Zoom invitation, but did you guys get like 3 invitations?
I got 2.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Too.
Did you? Okay. It seems like, I don't know, something happened and turns out there were a bunch of invitations sent. But anyway. Okay, so how are you guys feeling about APES and the test coming up? Good, Lincoln's here. Awesome. So we're gonna get some folks coming in. Hey, Lincoln.
How's it going, Mr. Thomas?
Good. How are you?
I'm all right.
All right. So fourth quarter. We'll wait a couple of minutes and see if people come in. But so I've been putting some grades in the book. So if you still have outstanding work for third quarter, you should make sure you get that in by Thursday at the latest. Because I gotta have grades in by Friday morning. So, Thursday is kind of the deadline, the final deadline. Okay, so if you have questions or concerns about that, you gotta let me know. Hi, Ella. Ella, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, how are you?
All right, good. Good, how are you?
Good.
Nice American flag in the background.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Oh, James here. Wow.
Is that surprising, Mr. Thomas?
Well, yeah, don't you think?
I guess so.
Yeah, I guess. So, all right. Wow, we're doing good. Hi, James. Can you hear? Let's see. So admit. Wow, I think almost everyone's here. Cool. Hi, James.
Crazy.
Hi, Mr. Thomas.
Okay, good. So, all right. Hi, Kelsey. Hi, Alicia. Hi, Kristen. Excellent. Good stuff. All right. So, the only one I'm not seeing is Jasmine. But it's good you all came. Thank you very much. I just want to reiterate that the grading period for third quarter closes on, well, Friday is when I have to have grades in the morning. So by Thursday, anytime on Thursday really works to get your stuff in. And that includes, you know, the reading guides as well as the tests up through chapter 23. Okay, so that's what's going to be on the third quarter grade. So it's real important to get through those, right? So that we have time to review. You know, and one of the things I think for your review, it's important to do is start handwriting some notes on various things. And then you'll be able to use those quickly for your test if you need to refer to those. But okay, so let me, if you guys have any questions, you know, ask me, email me, request a Zoom meeting, whatever, but I'll be happy to work with you one-on-one as well. So, you know, the schedule has kind of changed for the school as far as when we can hold Zoom meetings, like science is like 8 to 11:30 on Tuesdays, but that does not include AP classes. And so I talked to Mr. Lovejoy and he said that was okay if we kept our normal meeting time. And so if that's okay with all of you, this time, if this time works, then we'll just go ahead with this time, Mondays at 1 o'clock. Okay. And, you know, as we get closer, if we find that it's beneficial, we could have more Zoom meetings or, you know, whatever to get us prepared. But, okay, so let me kind of take you through what I have for you. And so I'm going to share my screen and we'll look at the schedule first. So, okay. Can you see this document? This is the weekly, okay, this is the weekly schedule we've been talking about. And so what I've put on here, do you guys know this document? Or do you guys just kind of just look at the classroom, the assignments that are posted?
I usually look at the schedule.
Okay, good. Because this schedule is, you know, up to date and everything. And so really what's going on now is after the chapter 23 work, we're working on the progress checks. And I know there hasn't been a lot of progress made on those yet, but I think it's real important to go through those. Okay, so, you know, we're already up to, according to this schedule, this is today, Monday, April 27th. So by next week, you know, I'm looking for you guys to have done the Unit 5 and Unit 6 personal progress checks. And those are online. Those are part of AP Classroom. Those are a mix of part of these unit personal progress checks are multiple choice questions. And then the other ones, the other part is the free response question, which is important to go through, obviously, the free response, especially because that's the test. That's what the test is made up of. Is the free response, 2 free responses. And are you guys are all okay with the format of the test, right? We have 1 question, 25 minutes, and then 5 minutes to upload. And that question is focused around design and investigation theme. Then the other question is 15 minutes with 5 minutes to upload, and that's focused on, what is it? This, I can't remember. Analyze an environmental problem and propose a solution, okay? And so we have to make sure that we're able to use our devices a couple days before the test. I think what they're gonna do is come out with a password for you to use to access the test. And so that won't be open, obviously, until 4 o'clock on May 18th when the test is. But we'll get that information out to you when it comes available. Okay, but everything else you should have available to you. And now is really time to review some of the materials. So let's see, back to the schedule. So Unit 5 and 6, personal progress checks. Also, for number 2 here, written in blue, it says begin gathering materials and handwriting notes to use for the exam. One thing I wanted to spend a little time on today, we'll do that a little later, is kind of brainstorm what kind of notes and what kind of resources we might want for to be at our ready. You know, you might even want to make, it's almost like Science Olympiad, right? Where you make a binder and you take it into a test and you kind of be organized with it and you know where to find stuff, such as, you know, tips for designing an experiment. So I put a lot of stuff on the APES review folder, and that has documents, vocabulary words, and it's just a list of the words. So I don't know that that's necessarily that helpful, although you might be like, oh, what's that word again for the idea of, excess nutrients in lakes or waterways, eutrophication, right? And that might help you, but it, might not be a bad idea to have around. Also, the legislation, for example, the 10 laws that you're responsible for. So in case there's a question, you might want to take some notes on each of the laws, right? So that you can use that if they ask you, name one law or describe one law that could be used to help, solve this sort of problem, like, overhunting or something like that. Okay, so, and then also the tree seedlings, some of you ordered the tree seedlings, is that correct? Well, yeah, like 5 of you maybe, or 6 of you. And so they can be picked up starting tomorrow. So I don't know if you want to pick them up. It'll be like a, sort of safe setting for you to pick them up. Nobody will be there, I don't think, but it'll be something where they'll be outside of the Waldo County Soil and Water Conservation District office, which is near the transfer station or the recycling center in Belfast. And do you know where that is? By the airport? Lower Congress Street? And you turn as if you're going to the transfer station. And then I guess the office is up there, but I can post more specific directions. Anyway, you can pick up your tree seedling there. And then you can, plant it, obviously. It shouldn't, stay in probably the bag for too long. But so what I said here is prepare your tree seedling planting site. And so, basically just dig a hole. It shouldn't have, you might have put some compost in there, but you don't really necessarily even need to, because the trees, they don't want a lot of nutrients, at least the small trees. So anyway, you can do a little research on that and check out where you want to plant your plant. Does that make sense, you guys? The other alternative is that I could take the tree to your house. I could just drop it off at your house. But anyway, I will send you something on Google Classroom about that. Okay, so that's not the most important thing, I guess, right now. But if you didn't sign up to get a tree seedling, then I don't know if it's too late or not. But anyway, if you're interested, let me know. Send me an email. Okay, so let's see. One thing they sent me. So are you guys okay with just working on the personal progress checks? That's kind of your homework, right? And I know, you're not necessarily maybe up to unit 5 and 6, but by May 11th, we'd like to get through these. And, it should be, it's not, I don't mean it to be busy work for you, but it's one of the recommended methods to review material, right? And so the thing about the personal progress check, the free FRQ for unit 1 and 2, it's only a partial question, so it wouldn't necessarily be a good simulation of the actual question. And so I wrote that on here, unit 1, FRQ, it's a partial question. Unit 2, FRQ is a partial question. So I don't know that it's beneficial necessarily for you to set a timer and, practice to that level. But once you start with unit 3, unit 3 is partial question as well. Okay, so unit 4 is full question. So that's like, okay, let's get the timer out. Let's, see if I can do this in 25 minutes, this one question. Okay, it's only one question for the progress check FRQs for each of the units. But okay, so unit 4 is a good way to simulate the 25-minute. And then unit 5, it's a full question, but that one, the FRQ has to do with analyze a problem and propose a solution type of question. Unit 6 is analyze a problem and propose a solution. It's a full question, but it's with calculations. Now, my understanding is that there's going to be no calculation on the test. I still haven't gotten confirmation of that, but I will do so and, make sure of that. But okay, and then there's unit 7 as well. And that's another full question for you guys to look at. Okay, so one thing I wanted to share with you, in addition, I put on here, is this was sent to us by College Board, and tips for success on open notes and open book tests. Okay, so this is what they sent out recently. Okay, so let's do that. You guys can still see my screen, right? You see that document, tips for success? Cool. Okay, so open book, open note exams are not easy. You guys probably have had some experience maybe with open book, open notes tests. And yeah, they can be a pain, right? Like in college, they're often hard, you know. You can still use your notes, but they're still hard. And you still need to prepare. More materials aren't always better. Okay. Yeah, you don't want to have tons of stuff that's disorganized, right? Because then you'll never find that. And then you'll get all stressed out because you're spending 5 minutes looking for stuff rather than thinking about and writing about the question. So be organized in advance. Maybe use little tabs, little sticky notes or something to mark off where different things are. Okay, so you got to come up with a plan of attack that way. Don't copy responses from notes or resources. So this is interesting. It says, we designed this year's AP exams knowing you have access to your notes and resources. So the exam questions will ask you to apply concepts from your notes and resources in new ways. Well, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but that's a little stressful. But I don't know. You'll be fine. If you know the material, you're going to be fine. You're going to get some points, partial credit anyway, and that's, you know, going to be enough for you. So let's see, your class notes are better than internet searches. Yeah, again, you know, you can waste a lot of time looking on the internet trying to find information. So they recommend you to take handwritten notes. And that will help you get it in your mind as well. So you might not even have to consult your notes when you are taking the test that refers to a certain idea. Okay, collaborating with others is not considered acceptable. Open notes, right? So they have ways, security methods for, you know, figuring out whether or not you cheated. And I guess the test, I don't know, some tests maybe were already administered or something, and they already found a couple people who cheated. And so don't even bother doing that, right? Because that's going to look bad on your record. Anyway, so that's that. Okay, now what I'd like to do is spend a little time, because this is an amazing resource, this is also, this table is on your APES review in your folder on Google Drive, right? And so I've been consulting these a lot, and these are really valuable. Each one of these is hyperlinked to a video, and they're you know, College Board instructors, and they use it's from the College Board, so it's very relevant information. And I mentioned that before, but I just want to stress that. This is kind of the go-to study location. Okay, the first 2 pages, units 8 and 9, they're not going to be testing that, so don't even bother with that. You know, going to unit 1. Now, the thing is, how I think you should use these videos is at the beginning of each of these videos, and for each, so all these links here for this one review lecture, it's the same video. It's just they talk about these different topics at different times during that one 45-minute video. Okay, so this is one 45-minute video, another one, and so on. And so it's really cool because at the end of the video, you find at the beginning of the video, you find a 5-minute or so section where they actually ask a free response question, and then they will go through the answers. And not only that, many of them have student answers, like student written answers. And then they go through and they kind of ask you, well, how many points would you give for these responses? And so it's a really neat way of kind of getting at, well, you know, what do they want? You know, would they give us 1 point or 2 points? Okay, and so kind of really targets what you need to be writing. And they also give you other ideas. Like, for example, the woman who does some of these videos, it alternates between a man and a woman. But the woman, one thing she stresses is that read the entire free response question first. The whole thing. So don't just read A and then answer A, B, C, D, E. Read all parts of the question first, because there might be a hint or some, you know, an answer to a previous part in a successive part of the question. So anyway, that's one of her tidbits of wisdom, right? And so when they go through this, you know, it's valuable in that way. So I was thinking that today we could actually look at some of these, and just to give you a feel for, well, you know, do you like it? Do you like to use this maybe as a study tool? But I think it's really valuable. So let me go ahead and I'm going to click on this link and I'm going to play you a little bit of this, and we can pause it, and then we can kind of, brainstorm answers, and then we can go ahead and show what the actual answers are and how they graded student answers. So let's try this. So I'm going to stop my share, and then I'm going to reshare. And I'm doing this because I want to have the sound coming from the YouTube video. These are all YouTube videos. Do you guys have any questions right now? Okay, so.
I was wondering, we are still allowed to use the internet on the test, right?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, maybe you want to, I don't know how you efficiently use the internet, but that's part of share anything people come across that think that it's a really good idea, or they've, that's the way they're going to do it. We'll talk about that, as we go through these weeks of review. So,
Mr. Thomas,
yes.
quick question. For
Yes.
the first question, designing the experiment, do we know what it is? Like what kind of experiment we're designing?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
Yep, not at all. And, they say design an experiment. Well, do they say? It says design an investigation. So it might not, I don't exactly know what that means. It could probably take on a whole range of possibilities, maybe. Maybe I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyway, if I find out more about that, I will definitely tell you. Okay, so, I wonder if I can. Sorry, this is clunky, but I want to make sure. Oh, here we go. Share computer sound. That's what.
The preferred prey of polar bears.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
The preferred prey of polar bears come.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. And could you hear that guy talking on a video?
For homework, I left you with.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sweet. Okay, I'm gonna play this video for a little bit of time. But this is the kind of thing that they're doing. They're giving you homework questions after every one of these videos. And then this is the start of the next video where he goes through the answers. And so that's why you should access the start of the video for the explanation and stuff. Okay, so let's check this out a little bit.
This part of the 2013 FRQ question number 4. So B said, identify 2 specific activities that result in a loss of biodiversity and explain how each one does lower it. And then C asks you to propose a strategy for each one of those 2 things. So let's look at the answers.
Okay, so you guys, would you have something to say to these questions? Why don't you guys just throw out ideas? First of all, identify, right? That's the sort of the action verb that they're asking you to do. What do you have to do when you answer a question where it says identify? Would a one-word answer, for example, be okay?
List.
Yeah, it would be, right? Yep, good. Okay, so explain, you have to do more than just one-word answer, but identify works. Okay, give me some ideas. What are 2 specific human activities, or one of them, that result in a loss of biodiversity?
Deforestation.
What is it?
Deforestation.
Deforestation, okay, awesome. What's another one?
Urbanization.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Urbanization, like.
Okay, so urbanization.
Like building, like
Construction of roads.
Yep. So what's a bigger category or a bigger theme that falls under urbanization?
Infrastructure.
Yeah.
Development, urban development.
Okay, urban development. What does that do to the habitat? Like natural habitat?
Fragmentation.
It fragments.
Yeah, habitat fragmentation.
Yeah,
And like noise pollution too.
There you go. Noise pollution could result in a loss of biodiversity. Okay. And what else? What else could you say? Could you say like burning fossil fuels? Seems to make sense, right? I would think so. What else we got? Maybe transport of invasive species? Would that be possible, do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, and then explain how each actually lowers biodiversity. So for the explain part of it, so let's say deforestation. How does deforestation actually lower biodiversity?
It destroys habitat.
Okay, so it destroys habitat.
And food.
And food, okay. Is that all you would need to say, do you think?
I would
I think
elaborate.
Yeah.
I would elaborate.
Like I would explain why that means that animals die off.
Okay, it's probably a safe bet, right, to do that little
Yeah.
extra. It might not, you have some time to think, right? So don't just go down and just start writing right away. Stop and think. Okay, deforestation, I'm going to say here. I'm going to explain how deforestation destroys habitat, which might reduce the number of species in an area. Something like that. Okay, what about this one? For each human activity you discussed in part B, propose a practical strategy. Other than simply banning the activity to reduce loss of biodiversity. So if we think about deforestation, what's a practical strategy to reduce the loss of biodiversity?
You could create like conservation zones where you can't cut down forests.
Yep. What's another way?
Selective cutting.
Tax
Yeah,
on,
good. Selective cutting. What's that, Alicia?
tax people that are deforesting. Like,
Okay.
tax on wood or something.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, you could make some sort of a tax on the harvesting. Okay, good. Nice. Okay, so let's watch a little more of the video and see what they say. And they also-
Identify two specific activities that result in a loss of biodiversity and explain how each one does lower it. And then C asks you to propose a strategy for each one of those two things. So let's look at the answers in terms of what's on the scoring guidelines. So you could have said something like clearing land for homes or constructions or for logging. All of that is just going to reduce habitat or fragment habitat. Agriculture is going to do the same thing, but it also has implications for genetic variation. Domestication typically leads to less genetic variation, so things like monocultures. Overfishing, overhunting, overpoaching, reducing species, especially endangered ones. Water contamination, nutrient depletion or nutrient pollution, dropping the DO, the dissolved oxygen. Burning fossil fuels, there's always a good culprit to blame. And so we can look at how that's causing climate change or even issues of acid rain. Then we've got invasive species. We talked about that with Ms. Fassler the other day and how that might displace native species. Dams, we mentioned this yesterday actually, about how dams could fragment habitats. And finally, surface mining and how that could destroy habitats. So there's a lot of things that you could have answered, but it had to be structured in this way. The activity has to be identified, and then you have to explain how each activity lowers biodiversity. So let's take a look at a student sample here. So this one says, cutting down forests to build homes causes loss of habitats for species to live, so they are forced to migrate. Well, there's points right there. Cutting down forest, there's the activity. What is the explanation of why it causes loss of habitats? So there's 2 points right there. The second part says hunting can lower biodiversity because it can lower populations to a point where they can repopulate quick enough and they go extinct. So there again, we get hunting as the activity and how that could drive an endangered species to extinction. So this student would have gotten all 4 points for this answer. So you'll remember that the next question says, take these two things now and talk about some solutions to each one. So here are some possibilities. So for the clearing land for agriculture or logging, you could do smart growth, compact development, kind of smart city planning, or you could just replant trees or do selective cutting. Agriculture, you can look at issues of polyculture or using IPM, integrated pest management. Overfishing or overhunting, we could look at CITES, the International Ban on Trading of Endangered Species, or our national law here in the United States, the ESA, the Endangered Species Act. Water contamination, you could look at regulations on those point sources of water pollution, or you could look at wastewater treatment facilities as a solution. Climate change, looking at all the carbon sequestration issues, carbon cap and trade, switching to renewable energy sources, and then clearly for acid rain, stick a scrubber on the smokestack, reduces some of that SOx getting into the air. Invasive species, you can kind of check those, tighter enforcement of what's coming in, and then education, always a great solution. Dams, put in fish ladders, salmon ladders that allow the fish to migrate past the dam. And then for surface mining, you could enforce the Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act, the SMCRA. But that's probably not one that we'll focus on today too much. So let's see what this person wrote. Remember, their two original things was cutting down trees and hunting. So they start off by saying ecosystems that are very highly diverse should be protected and turned into wildlife refuges and parks.
Okay, so you guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so how many points would you give this person? So they can earn up to 2 points. Can you guys see that? What would you give them for that?
I think 2 points would be good.
They only give them 1 point.
Oh, for
So
the
they can't-
question?
Yep, for these answers. Check out what they say.
Get
Okay.
torn down or changed by humans in a negative way. So let's stop there for a minute. Nothing that they said is really wrong. Those are actually nice ideas, but it doesn't address the issue of logging or cutting down trees. In order to get those points, we would have had to say, what's the solution here? The second part says hunt during certain times when the animals aren't breeding so they can reproduce to repopulate the animals killed and they won't be overhunted. Here we get the point for talking about how to regulate that hunting. So the person gets 1 point out of 2 because they didn't do the part on trees, on cutting.
Okay, so that is an example of that question. And then they go on in the video and they actually go through a lecture on the material. And so, you know, you can go to this document and you can see that, okay, well, this lecture talks about ecosystems primary productivity. Well, we didn't do a lot with primary productivity. We didn't talk about it that much. Like, what the heck is that? And oh, I forgot. There's this like NPP and GPP, right? Gross primary productivity, net primary productivity. Well, what exactly is that? And so you can go to the video and you can actually watch a little segment of the video that talks about it. Okay. And each of these are topics, right? The topic numbers, and those are sort of elaborated on a little bit. Like, what are those topics? What introduction to ecosystems? Well, what is more specific information I need for that? Then you can go to this document, which is also in your shared folder, and this is the essential knowledge statement. So, like, for example, for introduction to ecosystems, oh, here's the more specific information you would need to know. And so, you know, competition, they talk about symbioses. Oh, gee, that might be a good thing to put in my notes, right? Well, this next one here is terrestrial biomes. Well, how many biomes are they going to ask me to know? And here they are. There's 10 biomes I think you're supposed to know for this. And so maybe include in your notes the biomes that are possible. Okay. So how are you guys doing? Do you have any questions?
On the video, it said that it had to be other than banning the activity, but one of the solutions was to ban trade. So is that different because it was banning something that is because of poaching versus, like, I don't know, that to me, that's like the same thing.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I guess, so they said ban trade?
Yeah, even though they said don't say just banning like an activity.
Right.
Maybe they like overlooked it, I'm not sure.
Well, maybe, I don't know about that, but maybe they mean banning trade of animals hunted, so you can still hunt maybe, but you just can't trade them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, it's a good point. Okay, so are you guys up for watching another one of those little reviews of a free response question? Do you guys find this is a useful use of our time? Hello? Or is this just not necessary, I guess?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, well, I'm gonna keep going then, but you guys can, provide feedback and stuff whenever you want, but. Okay, so this next one, this is the second video. And so if we work through, a few of these at our meetings, this is one way to do this, right? So I was thinking if we go through like 4 of them today, and then we go through 4 the next time, and 4 the next time, 4 the next time, then we'll pretty much get through all of the free response questions that they went through on these videos from units 1 through 7, right? And that's the end of it. And so, yeah. So let's just look at another one. And that would be for these sections. So carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, phosphorus cycle. So one thing I could see putting in my notes would be nitrogen cycle. Maybe getting I don't know if you guys have access to a printer, printing out maybe a copy of a nitrogen cycle, or you could just draw the picture, right? And then you could, write, okay, nitrogen fixation, what's that all about? Well, that's nitrogen gas to ammonium. What's nitrification, ammonium to nitrate, and so on in the nitrogen cycle. Yep. So, okay, let's take a look at here at this video, and I'm going to go to, the 2-minute mark.
Because are the same. And spend some time learning that content in important units 8 and 9 so we can make some connections. The model that Dr. Sowell introduced yesterday, where he reviewed some content, we did a little bit of practice together, and then he left you with a part of an FRQ prompt that you could write on your own so that you really get time to practice that. That's the model that will carry through for yesterday. You spent some time yesterday looking at where he reviewed some content, we did a little bit of practice together, and then he left you with a part of an FRQ prompt that you could write on your own so that you really get time to practice that. That's the model that will carry through for all of the additional review lessons. There are 18 of them altogether. So let's take a look at the homework that you did. You can grab that, the assignment that you wrote yesterday. You spent some time yesterday looking at ecosystems, and you looked at that cool Arctic food web, and the prompts that you did for homework were having to do with why animals migrate. That's kind of a new learning target for us in our somewhat adjusted curriculum this year. So in taking a look at letter E, many species, including whales and birds, will travel thousands of kilometers during annual migrations. Provide one reason for that a species may migrate a long distance. So you can check your answer and see if you would have earned the 1 point for this. I think most of my students probably went with this first bulleted point, that animals migrate for their source of food or a source of water. The next bullet, maybe the food that they eat migrates. So a whale might follow a school of fish that is migrating. I think probably the next most used answer had something to do with migrating for availability of breeding grounds or nesting grounds, or areas to more protection from predators to rear their young. So hopefully you earned that point. Let's take a look at a sample student response to give you a little practice on if you can pick out if an answer does correctly qualify for earning a point. So take just a couple of seconds and read that response and see if you would point it or not.
Do you think they should get the point? Kristen's nodding her head. You give them a point? Yep, they do earn the point.
And obviously this student earned that 1 point. They talked about seasonal temperature changes, and that would coincide with this third bullet, more hospitable climate during certain seasons. And just remember that whenever you see that, provide a reason. A nice prompt, a nice term to get you prompted to move in that direction is simply to say, well, they do this because. I'm providing a reason for that. Letters I and I that you answered. To describe one commercial fishing activity other than whaling that results in the death of right whales. And then that was worth 1 point. And then the next one, describe a strategy that would be a solution to that problem or could mitigate that problem. I will point out that it's really important that you read all of the prompt. Notice in the first part of that prompt, and I always tell my students before starting to write any part of their FRQ, read the entire thing all the way through first, and just take a minute to sit back and process kind of where that question's going. Notice that if I had read I before I read I, they kind of gave me a lot of information here. They tell me that whales migrate between subtropical and polar regions annually. So right there, I kind of got, oh, they're moving to a different climate. So the one thing I want to point out as you start to grade this is that they are 1 point for each answer, and that the strategy, the activity and strategy are linked. In other words, if I did not provide a correct commercial activity that threatens whales, I could not earn a point for a strategy. So that's not super common that points are linked, but you may, it may occur on one of the questions that you see. So I think the most used response, a commercial activity that threatens whales, is that they get caught in, they end up as bycatch. They get caught in fishing nets or fishing gear from other fishing activities. Oftentimes the ships, large commercial transport vessels, are the channels that those ships use are the same as the migration lane for the whales. So that could be a commercial activity. And then some form of noise pollution that can disrupt a whale's navigation system. As we look at a solution or a strategy to mitigate that, what I want to point out is you want to avoid saying, oh, well, just don't let fishermen fish anymore and there won't be any bycatch if we don't let them put nets out there. Rarely can we have a justifiable, reasonable solution simply banning or eliminating a process. So if you're a little bit unsure, always think if you can express a way that you can reduce the impact of something or limiting it or providing an alternative. And notice that that idea comes up in a lot of our descriptions of strategies. Changing a type of fishing method. When I fish, the time of year that I fish, maybe I don't get to be in that fishing area where whales are when whales are migrating. A reduction in seismic survey activity. Again, maybe even particularly when whales are migrating, installing quieter motors. And then we certainly have this general idea that I can often regulate. A solution is to find people who don't pick up their nets from the ocean and leave them to threaten fish populations. So hopefully you got at least one of those points, maybe both of them. Just take, I'm going to show you the rest of that student's response. So remember what we're looking for here. Describe a commercial activity that results in the death of whales and a strategy to reduce that. So let's take a look at this student response and see if you would have given that 0, 1, or 2 points. Together. So let's take a look at the homework that you did. You can grab that. Probably the next most talked about season process, kind of super common, that, and then some mixed service, you would have given that 0, 1.
All right, so what do you guys think? So if you read that. Who would give them all 2 points?
I'd give him 2 points.
Anybody give them one? You go ahead. Anybody give them 1 point? 0 points. Okay, check.
Wait, I have a question.
What?
Would like oil spills due to like factories count? Not oil spills, but like chemical spills?
I don't think that's a major cause of whale death. So I don't think you'd get a point.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so listen to what she says too here.
1 or 2 points. And actually, the student earned 0 points for this. They did not earn the point for the activity that threatens the whale population because fishing of other fish does not directly cause the death of right whales. And if they didn't earn that first point, they couldn't earn the point for a solution or a strategy to decrease the effect of that.
So, that's a little debatable, I would think, because if, right whales are baleen whales, so they have, they filter basically, they open their mouths and then they grab a bunch of water and plankton inside there in the water, then they close their mouths, the water can go out, but the plankton are trapped. But so if they're eating plankton, then yeah, I think, since plankton are part of the food web, that could be influenced by the abundance of other fish. But anyway, that doesn't seem to be a direct enough result. So you guys should be thinking of maybe not your first answer, but the best answer or an answer that they might want to see. You know what I mean? Again, stressing the importance of thinking before you write. Anyone else have any comments on that one?
A note on misconceptions that came up.
Sorry. Okay. Let's try another one. You guys, let's do this one. This is a biome question. Okay, anybody have any questions, comments? This is only like a minute or so long. Okay. And we're going to start at 114 here. Let's see.
Part.
Okay,
In which they measure the change in the amount of CO2 in soils incubated at different temperatures for a period of 5 days. All soils were collected from the same location. So,
okay, let's read this question a little bit. Can you guys spend a couple minutes reading the question? So does anyone have anything to say about A? How would you answer A? How does carbon enter the soil? Okay, animals. So how does that happen?
When they decomposition.
So when an animal dies, its body, you mean, releases the carbon?
Yeah.
The microbes decomposing it release the carbon.
Okay, that seems to be reasonable. What's another way? What's
like
What's that?
compression of organic material, like things turning into coal and oil from being under a lot of pressure for fossil fuels.
Okay, so how's coal and oil made?
From like biological material being compressed.
Okay, what kind of biological material?
Things containing carbon.
Yeah.
Organic material?
Yeah, of course, organic material. But right. So how does carbon, like, where's that carbon before it gets into organic form? Inorganic form, right? Obviously, right? So hold on. What's an inorganic form of carbon?
CO2.
Yeah. So how does the CO2, so ultimately the CO2, the carbon's in the air, in the atmosphere. So how does
Plants
there you go.
sequester
Plants,
it.
exactly. So plants, right? And then animals eat the plants, and then the animals, die and decompose, and the carbon goes into soil. Or the plants grow into soil and they die, and then it gets released in the soil as well. Right. So, yeah. Okay. So, how does carbon in the soil, how does it return to the atmosphere? How does that happen?
Cellular respiration and burning of fossil fuels and
Yeah, there
other
you go.
things that contain carbon, like
Yep.
trees and such.
Excellent. Good. Right. And remember that question, how they were asking why using trees for like burning wood is not maybe as bad as, say, burning coal. Why is that a difference? Or like biofuels, why is that different than in terms of?
Because it's renewable.
Yeah, it's renewable. And so what does that mean, though? You'd have to say more than just that, right?
It means it's a resource you won't run out of in the near future.
Okay, but it's also, it's
able to be regenerated.
Yeah, and it's also releasing, like wood burning is releasing carbon dioxide that was recently already in the atmosphere, right? Like as a tree grows, because it's a short-term turnaround. Whereas fossil fuels, you're releasing carbon that was stored for millions of years. You guys remember that question that we had? I don't remember. It was one of your past tests. Okay, so what about C? What's the independent variable in the experiment?
Soil. I don't know.
So what are the two
Soil
variables?
itself. Oh, wait, hold on.
What are the two variables in this experiment that they're talking about?
Amount of CO2 and temperature. So the temperature would be independent.
Yes, that is correct. Right. Because the experimenter is changing the temperature, right, manually, and then the response variable would be the amount of CO2. Okay, and so the amount of CO2 depends on the temperature. So this amount of CO2 is the dependent variable. The temperature would be independent variable. Good. What's the experimental control? What would be an experimental control?
Soil without organic material in it?
What's that, Kristen?
Like soil that never had organic matter in it to see how much CO2 it has anyway. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. So,
soil temperature, like an average temperature of a certain place,
okay,
and then testing
yeah, so right, so
other temperatures against that.
Okay, so maybe some sort of baseline temperature, right? Like, and what does that mean exactly? Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you'd say to that. I guess some baseline temperature, perhaps before the Industrial Revolution or something. So we'll see what the answer says. But okay, so what about E? How does the amount of CO2, how would it change if temperature was increased to the point that it killed the soil microbes? So this is the amount of soil, CO2 in soils. So what would you see if everything was dead? What would happen to the amount of CO2 in the soil?
It would
If
go
there was
up.
nothing to if everything was dead, though, there'd be nothing to use it and sequester it, as well as nothing to release it, right?
Yeah, that makes sense
So
to
it would
me.
kind of
right?
stay static. But if they're talking about only increasing to the point that it killed the soil microbes, then it would just be, sorry.
Yeah, no, I like your thinking, but let's take a look at what they say here.
So the first question you were asked is to explain how carbon enters the soil. So here you could have said something like the carbon enters the soil from organic matter from dead plants and animals, and then the carbon enters the soil when they die. How does that carbon get back into the atmosphere was B, and that's through the decomposers. Carbon in the soil is returned to the atmosphere as CO2 when the decomposers in the soil break down dead plants and animals. And then through their cellular respiration, CO2 pops back in the atmosphere. So C and D were about the experiment itself. And this is definitely going to be a part, or a version, or something like this is going to be a part of FRQ number 1, experimental design. So identify the independent variable. The independent variable was the temperature. That was the thing that was changed by the scientist. What was the control? Remember, the control is the group that is not exposed to whatever variable you're exposing them to. In this case, it was the temperature. So the experimental control is the soil sample that is not incubated and left at room temperature. And then there's a describe question. How would the CO2 change if the temperature was increased to the point that it killed the soil microbes? Well, there would be less CO2 generated for the atmosphere because the decomposition would come to a halt with no decomposers. So hopefully you got some of those right, and that was a good review of Ms. Fassler's talk on biogeochemical cycles.
So that's interesting. Room temperature, I guess, would be the control. Do you guys have anything to say about these answers? Does that make sense? I mean, this is an important question, right? Because this is the design kind of question. And
Would room temperature technically be like I don't know, I feel like the temperature of soil is not exactly something that would be considered room temperature.
Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, the control, I don't know if you would answer something like, well, something like a temperature that would be equivalent to the atmosphere before the Industrial Revolution or something, I was thinking, but I don't know. I guess it's just think more simplistic than that, perhaps. But yeah, you could say standard soil temperature, which is 55 degrees Fahrenheit usually. But anyway. All right. So let's look at another one. You guys up for that? So this one is, let's see, the fourth picture. 2, 3, 4. And it's almost time, so this will be our last one.
So one of the best pieces of advice that your teacher. So one of the best pieces of advice that your teachers were probably giving you, and Dr. Sowell and I, as your virtual teachers, can give you, is that when you read that prompt of the FRQ, don't just start puking out the first thing that comes into your mind. Take a minute because the writing will go rather easily. Take a minute and process what that question's asking you to do. And the first thing I would do if I were reading this is I would in my head kind of go through, what do we mean by leaf litter? Oh, that's all those leaves that are sitting on the deciduous forest floor. They lose their leaves. And how does having those leaves on the forest floor help in the plants of the deciduous forest ecosystem? So you could talk about a number of different things here, and I'll kind of go through these bullets of which were the most common kind of answers students would give. Leaf litter is critical to the survival of forest plants because, and I'm guessing a lot of you went with this first bullet point, maybe because we had just recently reviewed biogeochemical cycles and food webs and food chains. So you've got that idea that leaf litter stores nutrients and that it's going to be recycled or decompose and release those nutrients and make them available for the growth of plants. You could have also talked about the benefit of that leaf litter preventing soil erosion.
Okay,
all that leaf litter in the first year. They were that invasive species that just went to town and consumed all of that leaf litter. So there's a ton of different things you could say.
So what does abiotic mean, you guys?
Non-living.
Nothing living.
Non-living. Okay, so soil fertility. So that's an abiotic factor. You guys agree with that?
Yep.
So that would be like nutrients in the soil, wouldn't it? So a nutrient is abiotic. A nutrient itself is not living.
You want to make sure that you don't just necessarily say something changes, but indicate how it might change. You could make an argument for either increase or decrease in soil fertility, changes in the nutrient level of the soil, changes in soil temperature, that should be pH of the soil, increased rates of evaporation because I'm not holding that soil moisture in, reduced shelter area for animals that might live there. So all kinds of different things that you could have said would have abiotic conditions that would have changed.
So you guys, one thing, this almost looks like a list, doesn't it? But the word says describe. So I would be apt to add a little more. I would say soil fertility would decrease because less nutrients would be being broken down and added to the soil. You know what I mean? So, you know, and one more thing about when they say identify, and, you know, I have to identify 2 things or 3 things, they're only going to accept the first 2 answers. Like if it says identify 2 factors, they're only going to accept the first 2. Even if your first 2 are not that good and the great answers are the next 2. So you have to think, you know, think before you start writing, think about the best 2. And you're going to have to list those first. Or just like here, describe 3 abiotic changes. I would think they're just going to look at your first 3.
And then we get into a little bit of the experimental design. This invasive worm question's a little bit older, and although it's some good practice on experimental design, I don't think it's maybe quite as tight, or it's not guiding you real directly into that experimental design. And I think some of the practice that we give you, we're going to try to be a little bit more targeted. But let's see what you came up with here. The article talked about this native siltgrass. So a hypothesis could be that increasing the density of worms would increase the biomass of siltgrass. My independent variable would have been the density of worms. That's the variable that I controlled. My dependent variable in this example would have been the biomass, or how much silt mass grew, silt grass grew as a result of that. Remember that your experimental control is always your sample group that is not subjected to that independent variable. So my control would have been a plot with no worms. And then if you look at other aspects of the experimental design that you could have talked about in designing your controlled experiment, we went through this in one of the earlier sessions about the idea of a large number of treatments. So how many test plots did I have? I want to replicate that. I maybe want more than one plot where each variable is being tested, and I can then average those results. How many times am I sampling each plot? How long am I going to let the experiment run? Maybe something about how I would actually measure the biomass of siltgrass. So all other good components you could have included in your experimental design.
Okay, so you guys, you see how that question, design a controlled experiment, it does say include specific hypothesis, right? But that's all. It doesn't say, you know, list the independent variable, the dependent variable, the experimental control, and some design points. But it's like if they say design a controlled experiment, that's your cue for like bringing out these specific ideas. Write a hypothesis. Name the independent and the dependent variable. Name your experimental control. And then also, you know, do your design points. So that document I shared with you on tips for designing an experiment, that has some of these ideas. And so that would be handy, especially since the big question is going to be the one that talks about designing an investigation or designing an experiment. So, and also the hypothesis, you can always write the hypothesis in the form of an if-then statement. So, you know, if independent variable changes, then the dependent variable will respond somehow. So you could write it as if the density of worms increases, that will cause the biomass of siltgrass to increase. So, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing that with you. So you guys, was that useful?
I would say it was, yeah.
Okay, so I would encourage you to go ahead and look through some of those questions on your own, because we probably won't have time to go through every one of them, and then also look to see what other sorts of specific topics you might be wanting to get notes written for. So please ask questions if you have them. And next Monday, is that going to work again? Awesome. So go through personal progress checks and, finish up any of your chapter work if you have it. And then, start to get your notes together. Awesome. So if somebody could share some notes next week, that'd be great. Hey, I also am including an extra credit assignment where you have to basically look at trees that are growing in Maine now using some references. It's all on the assignment. And then also looking at some trees that might be moving into the area based on climate change, and seeing which trees can replace some of the current ones whose population might be declining. And so it's a little bit, relevant to Maine. And so Alita McKeague and I, who's from the Waldo County Soil and Water Conservation District, we kind of brainstormed this lesson together. So this will be field work if we were together. But anyway, so that'd be extra credit. But the main thing you want to start doing is getting your notes together and organizing some things, for the test. Awesome. You guys have any questions, comments?
Right now.
Okay. Well, then I'll leave you with that. And thanks a lot for coming, and keep in touch. We'll see you Monday next week.
Mr. Okay. Thomas, I actually have a question.
Yes, sir, Lincoln. Yep, thank you.
What are we going to do after the AP test? Do we have any plans?
Yeah, we're doing some, like I said, this woman, Alita McKeague, there's options for you to do some outside experimental work and some field work. We have some forest sites where we're measuring trees, various aspects of trees like their diameter and their height and the species and their condition. We're doing that every year, so it's a long-term project. So that's if that's something you'd want to do, is like go out in the field. We could set you up, and you could still do social distancing, right? You and maybe somebody else could go out there and sort of collect some data for those different plots. So that's one option. But so there's a lot of options depending on how the conditions are as far as the quarantine. Otherwise it'll be some online options for you, but we'll get you outside anyway. And part of the tree planting, where you ordered the tree and stuff, that's also, to get you outside. And we're going to do some more stuff with that also after the test. But if you have anything in mind about after the test, like stuff you want to do or ideas you might have for us to get out and do some field work, that'd be awesome, Lincoln.
All right. I was thinking the week after the AP test, I want to go, because that's when school is going to slow down potentially.
Yeah.
I was looking at loading up my car and driving up to like Mount Washington and staying there for a week and just trying to like de-stress and get out for a little bit.
Sure.
And I was wondering like if there was like an environmental anything that I could do, like research there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there is. Yeah, we could look into that. You could yeah, I'm not sure what, but I know there's a lot of air pollution studies up at the top of Mount Washington. So yeah, that'd be great. I'll keep that in mind and see if I come across anything, and I'll let you know.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet.
I think a cool extra credit thing to do would be to write like a page on how the coronavirus is affecting like climate change.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Oh yeah, right, because like the air pollution is being reduced quite a bit, isn't it, in a lot of places?
Yeah. But also like because more plastic, like not reusable containers are being used because of the scare and stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so there's negative and positive effects from it, right? Yeah, we have tons of like paper bags and plastic products in the garage now from all the stuff, the one-time use. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Huh. That sounds fun. So, yeah, maybe we could put together some sort of extra credit project around that. You're thinking?
I'm thinking.
All right. That sounds like a good plan. Maybe you can write it up, write a little lesson up or an activity up or, you know, I don't know, whatever, and then share it with me, right? And that could be extra credit by itself as you coming up with some sort of a lesson.
Sure.
All right, cool. On top of all your other work you have to do, Kristen, right?
Yes.
All right, good. Thanks for the idea, though.
Yeah.
So what else we got? Any other questions? You guys want to review more stuff together?
I think I'm good.
All right, sounds good. So I guess, yeah, Sawyer, you're okay with, your work's pretty good, right? You're caught up fairly, for the most part?
Yep.
Good?
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Excellent. And Jamie, you've got some work to do.
Yeah.
So I have to have grades in, you know, by Friday.
Yeah.
So
I was talking to Mrs. Layton. She was telling me about that.
So, you know, you just keep plugging away. You make some progress at least, right? If you don't make any progress between now and then, I don't know. But if you make some progress and show that you're, you know, making an effort, then I could give you like an incomplete grade or something, right? And then you can always fix it in the fourth quarter. Yeah?
Yeah.
But one thing you can definitely do is do well on this exam. You know, so you know, working on getting your review materials ready, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's very likely that you'll do very well, right? But we just got to get you through the, you know, those tests for the most part. And that hopefully will help you, you know, be exposed to all these questions and stuff so that you'll be able to, you know the ideas quickly, you know, and they pop into your head quickly. But anyway, cool.
Yeah, I'll do some of that.
All right. So let me know if you need help at all or you want to, you know, work together or whatever. But okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Good. And Kelsey, you're okay? Can you hear me, Kelsey?
Yeah, I'm all set. I have everything done.
All right, sweet. Good job. Yep. So keep working on the review. But I'd love to see people's notes, what you guys start putting together and what you maybe share next time, like things that were a little confusing to you or you didn't have a good handle on, but you put some notes together and you maybe can kind of mention those things for next week. And then that'll give other people ideas for, what I want to put in my notes. So, anyway. But I'd be happy to meet with you more often and we can go through more questions. But you have access to all that stuff as well. So, all right. Well, that's, I guess, all I have if you don't have any more questions. But thanks a lot for coming. It was good to see almost the entire class. All right.
Yeah,
well,
thank you too.
Yep. Good enough. Take care.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.
Yep. Bye.